All right, so as far as the program goes, this is the 5th week of the deadlift program, which means we have about 5 weeks to go. 5.5 weeks out from Deadlift for Dogs. This is a secondary deadlift, which I do today on a Tuesday, and then I'll do my primary session with the rest of the guys on a Friday and get a bit of a deadlift party going on in here, especially as we come into singles. That vibe, that hype, that community is really, really helpful for those big top singles. So this day is, like I said, the secondary deadlift, and it's still a deficit, the last week of a deficit deadlift, before this day will transition into pause deadlifts. So for this first half of the program, we've had the 2 deadlift days that have both been like moderately difficult in terms of like moderate volume, moderate intensity, not pushing anything too crazy hard, getting a lot of work in, and just aiming just to build up strength. You know, people refer to it as base building or anything like that, but it's just about just building strength. And so both days are moderately difficult. We're not worried about the crossover between them so much. And then in the later end, in the next 5 weeks, we'll have way more one primary day, which is the singles, the competition lift, just straight up load progressions, and really focusing on that, on being recovered for that session, on being ready for that session, on no other session being as important as that session. So like the secondary session will become slightly less difficult. So it goes into pauses just at a lower RPE, further from failure. So it goes from like both being moderately difficult with a lot of work or a medium amount of work, and then kind of shifts so that one is the primary focus and the second one. And that's honestly the structure that the most powerlifting program follows. When we're doing a full prep, a 3-lift prep, where we've got squat, bench, and deadlift to worry about, it's exactly the same thing in general theory, but it's just a little bit more important in how it's done, because you've got things like your lower back that comes heavily into squats and heavily into deadlifts, as well as obviously your legs and hips. In bench press here, you've got the crossover between that low bar squat kind of pissing off the shoulders and having an impact on like the bicep and things like that. And obviously the bench press that we need to do. A lot of people get elbow pain in the bench press. We have to kind of manage that and lay out the week in a way. And so in a more off-season powerlifting phase, we're focusing on just getting a lot of work in, and how can we use variations and rep ranges and stuff to kind of just get a lot of work in, build a lot of strength, build a lot of muscle. And then during the back end of the prep, it's really how can we prioritize and get the most out of the primary sessions, of the heavy sessions, of the skill of powerlifting. And then the other days are just going to be there to kind of set you up for those important days. So that's the general idea. A little less important in a deadlift prep, but I still try to make it the same. I still try and instill that same theory, that same mindset for people, allow people to build momentum, allow people to just progress week to week, have a big primary focus. It's mentally hard coming in for like 4 really fucking hard days. So laying it out like this just allows us to really put all our energy, our focus into the one. And if the others were a little bit more cooked for, it's less of an issue. So to go into actual today's layout, we had some warm-ups, which are the overhead side band, some glute step downs. I did some single leg RDLs, some unweighted hip aeroplanes and stuff as well. Just my hips feeling a little bit stiff today. My knees are feeling a little bit wrecked for a few different reasons. So I'm going to hit the deficit deadlifts first rather than the squats. I'm going to hit them and then head into the squats after. I might just have to be doing a hack squat or something like that. But yeah, we've got a deficit deadlift up first, so it'll be a top set of 3 at RP 8, so relatively heavy. This is the hardest one before we go into the second phase, like I said, with some back off rep work. So yeah, I think I've got some big numbers in here. I think I can get relatively close to 300 today on this. It's been a long time since I've had 300 on a bar, and I've been tantalizingly close and could have easily hit it over the last few weeks, but it's about, knowing when to build that momentum and base build and not fuck on the other sessions. And then in the next phase, know when to push it and get the most out of it, because the other sessions aren't as important. So you can see how that mindset, that play happens there. Yeah, let's get into it. Deficit deadlifts. Just trying to get a good stretch in the hip, trying to move the hips side to side, a bit of a side crunch, just a warm up. Get both feet to stay flat, but it's very difficult to make it happen. Stretch out this hip. And a little bit of a adductor, hip flexor, pinchiness that just, we'll let go after some of this stuff. It's just, the side's so much better, I can get into the glute. There we go. Sometimes I wouldn't do this stuff if you're feeling good. You feel like you don't need much of a warm up, then I'd head straight into deadlifts and not warm up so as much. It doesn't have to be absolutely set in stone every time. I do more warm ups when I'm feeling stiff and things are feeling a little bit tight, pinchy, whatever you want to call it. And then when I'm feeling really good, I'll do some light movements. Bowser helps to make them less stable by being super annoying. All right, so deficit deadlift setup. We have standing on a 15 kilo bumper, a couple centimeters. You don't need a lot. A lot of people, when they think deficit deadlifts, they think like deadlifting off a fucking tower, and you see them standing on like a huge block that's this high, and it turns into just like a squat. There's something that doesn't look like a deadlift whatsoever. If your variations of squat bench deadlift that you're trying to do to improve your competition squat bench deadlift no longer look even close to your squat bench and deadlift, you have varied too far. Not to say that other movements don't have a place, but if it's something that you're wanting to directly carry over to, or improve a weakness or a technique fault in your main movement, then it needs to somewhat look like it. It just needs to like make you slightly shift how you're doing something or strengthen a slight weakness, but it should look the same. So for me, I'm using it to just get a little bit more knee bend, a little bit more hip flexion, and just make my range of motion just that little bit longer, but it still looks very much like my deadlift. I usually just do some nice slow control reps on these first ones, even some pauses to really help drill my position. And then as I feel more confident and I'm like in the groove, I'll speed it up and get more explosive. Yeah. Last week I hit 270 on the squat. On the deficits, 270 on these deficit deadlifts. So hopefully we can beat that by a little bit today. Deficits are just hard to judge. All right, so a while ago I started a powerlifting education type channel on Instagram. Tried out their channel feature, and in short, just did my head in, because I thought it would be a place where I could answer things with a little bit more context. In posts in Instagram, you can say like, hey, this is how to do squats. And then somebody else can be in the comments and be like, hey, that's not how you do squats. This is how you do squats. And both of us can be right, because we're coming from different contexts, working with different people, different outcomes. And to get around that, I was like, okay, I want to put some longer form stuff and explain things. And that's what the channel was meant to be for. And got some questions in there and then tried to answer them. Instagram has a 1 minute limit on videos that you can do in there. So it's actually, I can get more context in on Instagram stories. So I was like, well, that is just really, really fucking frustrating. It's just not even, just completely, I don't understand what the feature's for even, to be honest with you. Rants on Instagram. But yeah, I'm gonna answer a couple of these now, just in between sets, in between warm-ups. From M. Taylor asked a technique question there on my weakness transition off my chest mid-range on bench press. So he's talking about a sticking point or a slow point that's coming, pause on the chest, competition assuming, and then going up, and then having kind of this point be the weakest point, be the failing point, be the slowest point in the lift before you get past that and continue on and lock it out. Might get a bit easier towards the top. For most people it does. Now, this is like super duper common. Exact same in a squat. You know, people will get to the bottom, they'll drive out of the hole, get a few centimeters up, and you know, just above kind of parallel, fail it there too. And it's very normal for those points to be in bench and in squat to to be the sticking point, to be the weakest point. And if you look at some stuff that I won't go into in depth, but like, you know, like biomechanics and joint angles and like muscles and where they're strongest and where they can produce force, as well as like technical breakdown. So like where people are most likely to get technique breakdown, and most likely going to be at that bottom point of the bench and the bottom point of the squat. So like by the time you get that 2-3 centimeters up, that's where like this potential loss of position is really going to come into effect and really kind of start to add up on you, I guess, if you want to call it. So like a combination of those things is going to lead to that point being the quote unquote like weakest point. And so it is, without seeing the bench press, like, you know, I'm going literally off a question here, but without seeing it, it's just very, very normal for that to be the point. And like the answer, unfortunately, is just getting stronger at bench pressing, which means either you know, using programming techniques, doing more volume intensity, more frequency. I know you can mess with that sort of stuff to try and get more work in. Just getting bigger through like the primary muscles of the bench press, through your pecs, through your front delts, through your triceps, and yeah, and just getting stronger at the movements. Like, unfortunately, that is just how it is. It might just be a matter of time, and yeah, I know that's a very simple answer, and it's not addressing a potential weak point there, but you know, it's simple stuff is most likely going to cause this one. Just more work on the bench press, maybe some longer pauses on the chest to make sure you're not losing position, as to what I said before. Like there's nothing wrong with having a sticking point. There's nothing wrong with having a slow point in your lifts. You're always going to have a sticking point. And if it's based on leverages and stuff, great, like cool. Like if potentially we bias the program to work like a particular part of it stronger for you to get that sticking point stronger, but it's always going to be the limiting factor, right? So we're always going to be working on that. You know, you're not going to go from like, oh yeah, I fixed it, so now instead of being weakest here, I get to here, and usually that is, it's just not a reality. We're just making people's sticking point stronger. It raises their ceiling of strength, and therefore they're able to get, you know, more weight on that bar when it gets heavier. So it's kind of like a weakest link in the chain. It's just like, make that stronger, the whole thing gets stronger type thing. So yeah, unfortunately not a super deep answer to this, but I think that helps a lot of people in just being okay with having a sticking point and knowing that, okay, cool, it's going to be the hardest point of the lift, I'm working on it. Be cool with that. So I chalk up before every single set, and we'll set up the exact same, whether it's 70, 220, 320. It just developing routine and habits that when in high pressure moments or really difficult lifts and stuff that are just going to guide you through the moment and when you can't think is stupidly important. So exactly the same, build the habits, build the lift. All right, I'll chuck on some straps and belt for next one. All right, belt on, straps on, 270. Just hit this for a single, judge where it's at. Try and beat last week. All right, I like it. All right, usually I would probably, I don't know, maybe a little bit more conservative on this, but being the last week, we are aiming for RP8. If I go a little over that, I'm not concerned, considering next week does shift into that other block, and I can kind of just auto-regulate next week. So thinking ahead, I'm not super worried about maybe pushing this a little bit harder than it should be. But I also would love for it not to be a complete grind. But yeah, last week 270 for 3, it was hard, but not super hard. And so I decided, based off that single that I just did, 280 is probably the right way to go. You can't like ever be 100% certain on these things. You just have to go with your gut, watch the videos back and make smart decisions. And sometimes it doesn't work out. Sometimes it does. And as long as you're making an informed choice and you think it's right, like you can't ask for more as a coach, right? Like I wouldn't be getting up for people for getting their temp selections, their load selections a little bit off. As long as it's not happening every week and it's just like ridiculously out, they actually are making an effort to make it the right way, the right choice. So anyway, here we are, 280 for 3 and the deficit. You chalk up. That's periphery for you. Just transition into a fucking piano solo. Double check your weights. Always make sure, even at competitions, people get shit wrong. Double check. Oh, fuck yeah. Fucking oath. If anything, too easy. You're doing it.
Yeah.
You're already doing it. You're just a little bit more. Yeah. Same as when people like, they go like, what do I need to do on bench? I'm like, your bench is great. Just do what you're doing more.
Yeah.
It's like, fucking get tighter. I feel really tight. Get tighter. Like, sometimes it's as simple as that. Alright, so like I said, a squatting movement. Hack squat's the choice today. We have a bunch of squatting movements here. The belt squat downstairs, which is what's actually programmed, but I've just found that I can't quite get it exactly right how I want to without piss off my knees. I'll be good 90% of the time, and then I'll fall into a position or whatever, and it'll just be really, really, really painful. I can't move, so just want to avoid that for now. Pendulum squat's definitely a bit too much knee for now. This seems to be the best option out of them, out of the stuff that we have, other than leg press, but leg press it's just a different movement. So yeah, hitting this, I have to go a little bit wider and a little bit more toes out than I would like, just due to working around them. But the goal is to just get through a big range of motion, get super deep in it, nice and controlled, not trying to like bounce out of the bottom or anything for now. My knees are feeling good, but like it's not until, like I said, it gets in those positions, like I'll be good, I'll be tracking really good, and it's when I fall out of position that it's painful. And that's really, really common with this sort of inflammatory, I guess, issues in a way, to put it simply. But yeah, it's something that you want to build on. You don't want to just try and avoid those positions forever. You want to train those positions as well. So there are other little things throughout the week that I'll do in terms of warm-ups and little like low load, isometrics, stuff like that, that I'll do to try and get in those positions and try and bring awareness to those positions and resilience to those positions, acceptance of those positions. So that is a different route as well, but we also just need to get in some good fucking hard training and stimulate muscle as well. So that's what we're doing here. All right, hitting some line leg curls. Knee sleeves come off because I find that they just get in the way for a leg curl, and I'm trying to bend my knee much as I can. I don't know. I just don't let me get in that top position. I don't know if it's them or not. And I'm going to use them to just elevate on the bottom of my quads here and just give me a little bit more of a stretch in my hamstring at the bottom. So it's not much, but it's enough. Just give that little tiny bit more on this machine. I've cut, like, the first combo I ever did, I cut 6 kilos, I think. But I'd done bodybuilding before it, so it didn't seem like much. But looking back on it, I'm like, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
Like, I was just so driven to be the best.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Like, I just, wasn't thinking like a normal person, I guess. Just fucking win at any cost. All right, a little bit of abs to finish, which this guy's definitely gonna get in the way for. I'm gonna do some side bends. I like to do these either, I can do these between benches, as in like forearm up on the bench, feet on here in like a side plank for more range. I find that really effective. But this one I'm gonna have my arm on the ground. It's gonna be a little bit more range, a little bit less range, but I'm gonna be able to load it a little bit more so that a cross section of like loadability and range comes in. And it's just the variation I'm going with today. Pros and cons. There are like crunches in the program. I prefer those to do on the GHR, which isn't in here. It's actually a home hour GHR. So I'm going to do some just standard GHR crunches in there. Find them way better than just a standard crunch. I can get way too many reps out or loaded too heavy. So by that one opening up a bit more range, I find that better. So you hit that when I get home, but just because I've got a little bit more time here, I'm going to hit these side bends as well. Feeling my lateral hip down the bottom. Let's get the big stretch through here, through my side abs, all the things involved there. And it's a good all-round stretch. It's something that a lot of powerlifters don't train in a way that I think a lot of people could get benefit from. All right, so first of all, getting in the position, so it's just a normal side plank. Bottom leg is mostly straight. Top leg I bend a little bit more, but it's on top. And then the bottom position, I'm kind of able to sink into the shoulder, open up this bottom side, get a bit of a stretch in the hip and everything. For loading, it's pretty easy. You just get the dumbbell, you chuck on top of your hips. And this is honestly, shouldn't be too hard, just first set. I'm trying to push my hips up to the roof at every rep. Ticking a few boxes here. All right, so pretty happy with that. Much better than the last vid that I did, and the blood sugar bullshit that came with that. Felt much stronger today. Got enough work in that I'm happy. My knees didn't play up. Yeah, a lot of good to take out today. I almost wish I put a little bit more on that deficit deadlift, but sometimes you got to learn to take wins in powerlifting. You got to learn to not just push everything and really try and get the most out of right now, because it's a long game and you got to try and build momentum. And being, like I said, 5.5-ish weeks out, it's kind of like I could have done that 280 and then gone like, fuck it, let's do 290 or 300 or something, and try and then ground out a few reps on that. But it's like, is that really going to help? Is it really going to make a difference to anything other than my ego and to look good for you guys on YouTube? Probably not. It's not going to make me a ton stronger, that one lift. So happy to leave it in there, get the work in, and come back on Friday this week for the primary deadlift session, and hopefully belt out a really good deadlift to kick off this last sort of peaking block. So I'll see you guys then.